Good morning, children, and welcome back to English class. Since we have finished learning how to write good stories, from today we will start doing a new poem on killing a tree. On Killing a Tree is written by Gieve Patel. Gieve Patel is a poet, playwright, an artist, as well as a practicing doctor. Gieve Patel was born in 1940 in Mumbai. He was educated at St. Xavier's High School and Grant Medical College. He lives in Mumbai, where he is a general practitioner. His poetry works include poems then first launched by Nizam Ezekiel, followed by How Do You Withstand, Body and Mirrored Mirroring, and On Killing a Tree. His plays include Princess, Savakska, and Mr. Behram. He held his first show in Mumbai in 1966, then went on to have several major exhibitions in India and abroad. Let me tell you about his poetry. Gieve Patel is considered to be the poet of the body, since human body is a recurrent theme in a majority of his poems. In his poems, the body acts as a living metaphor. He sympathizes with the oppressed or downtrodden and anyone devoid of his basic right to live. In an appropriately titled poem, The Ambiguous Fate of Gieve Patel, he being neither a part of Hinduism nor Islam in India, he grieves the isolation faced by the Parsis in the starting line of the short poem based on communal riots, when he writes, "To be no part of his hate is deprivation." Through this poem on killing a tree, the poet tells that only cutting the branches or cutting the stem of a tree is not enough to kill it. The branches and leaves will grow again. We need to dig out the root and dry it in the sun to kill a tree. The theme of this poem is it aims at creating awareness in the minds of people that trees are as much living creatures as animals. At the same time, the underlying message about protecting trees is also conveyed through it. Let us now start with the poem. It takes much time to kill a tree. Not a simple jab of the knife will do it. It has grown, slowly consuming the earth, rising out of it, feeding upon its crust, absorbing years of sunlight, air, water, and out of its leprous hide sprouting leaves. The poet in the above stanza tells us that it takes time to kill a tree that has taken years to feed upon the crust of the earth and grown into a big tree. It cannot just be cut and killed off with a knife. It has grown big and strong. Fresh leaves have started to grow out from its scaly, uneven bark. There's a lot of personification that has been used in this stanza. For example, it has grown, slowly consuming the earth. That means the tree has been feeding like a human. Also, and out of its leprous hide, sprouting leaves. The comparison of the scaly bark with a leper's skin is another good example of personification in the first stanza. Let us start with the second stanza, children. So hack and chop, but this alone won't do it. Not so much pain will do it. The bleeding bark will heal. And from close to the ground will rise curled green twigs, miniature boughs, which, if unchecked, will expand again to former size. The poet in this stanza says that the only way to kill this magnificent tree is to cut it down ruthlessly with cuts and blows. Even the ruthless chopping and cutting it down won't kill the tree. This hacking will cause pain. The bleeding bark will heal. But the tree still won't die. The tree will rise again in tiny, curly green twigs, fresh growth of the same tiny branches of the tree. If somebody keeps cutting these tiny, fresh branches, they will eventually grow into bigger trees just as before. Again, a lot of personification the poet has used in this stanza too. For example, bleeding bark, which means the tree bark will ooze some of the moisture that is contained in the trunk. It will bleed, it will bleed as we do when we cut or injure ourselves. Imagery also reflects in this stanza, the representation through language of sense experience. The image most often suggests a mental picture, and thus we can see an example of imagery. An image may also represent a sound, smell, taste, or feeling. For example, not so much pain will do it. The bleeding bark will heal. It means the image of the tree suffering with pain and bleeding we can imagine. So, dear children, these were the first two stanzas of the poem on killing a tree. Read the poem and try to understand it. In my next video, I will explain you the next two stanzas of this poem. Till then, take care and goodbye.